liked the fucking book. I liked it. I thought it was brilliantly written. I thought it was courageous. I thought it was about writing. I thought the things that he had to say about Israel, the apartheid state, the occupation being an abomination and so forth weren't to be answered. I don't think they were effectively answered in that review. I think the review was a hit piece. It was one of a number of hit pieces against Ta-Nehisi Coates. Coates has a view. I think that view deserves to be considered, debated, and argued with in the American media and public discussion. These are not black and white questions. Jonathan Burak. At this point, I have only one question for this show. How is it possible that Glenn does not have any interest in responding to each and every part of this? And it's a reference to Michael Coates' review of Ta-Nehisi Coates in Commentary magazine called Ta-Nehisi Coates Charlatan. Well, I don't have an interest in responding to each and every part of that particular review because I hadn't read it until I saw this link. I did go and look at it. It's, of course, critical of Coates, and people can be critical of Coates. Why I need to have a response to each and every part of it befuddles me. I think you're asking me, why don't I agree about Ta-Nehisi Coates' book with the critical reviewer at Commentary? And I've already answered that question in our extended discussion of that work that John and I have had here. And I'll stand by that. I'll refer you to that discussion. You want to add anything to that, John?
I really honestly feel that we both very much had our say during that discussion. I guess, well, Glenn, I suppose I haven't read this review. I'm going to, but I suppose maybe there could be some things you could fill in because you can imagine what that review is probably like. There are various factual claims that Coates made that aren't true, et cetera, et cetera. And the idea is, what do you have to say to that if you think the book was so deep and significant? But I don't know how much we need to dwell on poor Ta-Nehisi Coates is the issue.
I liked the fucking book. I liked it. I thought it was brilliantly written. I thought it was courageous. I thought it was about writing. I'll review the brief that I offered before. I thought the things that he had to say about Israel, the apartheid state, the occupation being an abomination and so forth weren't to be answered. I don't think they were effectively answered in that review. I think the review was a hit piece. It was one of a number of hit pieces against Ta-Nehisi Coates. I've listened to him be interviewed by Amy Goodman at Democracy Now!, by Peter Beinart at his podcast, by Ezra Klein, who writes for the New York Times, and many others. And Coates has a view. I think that view deserves to be considered, debated, and argued with in the American media and public discussion. These are not black and white questions. Coates says, for example, when asked, how do you react to the way that you were treated by the interviewer at the CBS Morning who said that your book would not be out of place in the backpack of an extremist? And he says, I can take tough questioning. I just wish somebody would put a tough question to the pro-Israel correspondents that they have on their show to the effect of, how do you square international human rights organizations declaring Israel to be an apartheid state or saying that what's going on in Gaza is genocide? How can you defend the Israelis in the view of those kinds of criticism? But he says you never see pro-Israeli people ask those kind of questions on American media. And so on. So I am out there as somebody who found Coates' intervention valuable. I am not alone. And that's my job. Point by point,
Since we've had that conversation, Glenn, though, what I can't get past is anybody looking at that situation and saying apartheid. One,
he's talking about the occupation of the West Bank. He's saying that the people who live under military occupation have a different order of law than the people who are citizens of Israel, who are also in the West Bank. That's what he's saying. It's two different systems of law, occupied and citizen, operative in the same time. He's talking about segregated highways and stuff like that.
But why?
Well, that's a separate question, John. You said
But
you
it's
don't understand
not.
how anybody could call it apartheid. You're just saying,
No, he's drawing a false parallel and using the resonance of that word, coming from the whole South Africa situation. Why are they apart? And then you can have a debate. But to imply that the issue is simply that
the South Africans think it's apartheid. The South Africans think it's genocide. Are they confused about that? You say an inappropriate comparison?
The issue is, why are they apart? You have to talk
that's
about
your issue. That's not the issue.
No, it's the issue. Because if you're making it seem as if...
Well, I mean, that's the same argument you could have offered in South Africa. Why are they apart? There were answers. They had answers.
And all of those answers would be, to the vast majority of people from this distance, utterly unjustifiable. Whereas what's going on in the Gaza/West Bank situation
is utterly unjustifiable.
Is much more complicated historically.
Therein is the rub. What justifies the application of force and the different deployment of government resources and government authority? What justifies that and what doesn't justify that is precisely the question.
Do we need to go into this again?
No, I tried to not do it. You're the one that forced the issue.
Hamas, among those people, is dedicated to butchering as many Jewish people as it can.
We're talking about that book. The book was about the West Bank, not about Hamas, not about Gaza.
It was about Israel's treatment of the Palestinians.
Israel's occupation since 1967, contrary to international law of those territories. That's what it's about.
But why? There's a history there, and it's not even an ancient history. It's a pose to look at that situation and say, apartheid. It's too simple, and it doesn't have to get all that complicated. It's a pose. There's a reason for the apartness, and it's a very urgent reason. And then you have a debate over what you do in the situation of that reason. What do you do about people being led by a group of terrorists explicitly dedicated to Israel not?
You stand up a Palestinian state. You give those people political rights within a authentic order of sovereignty. You don't keep them stateless for a half century.
But what do you do physically? How do you allocate territory given that situation?
Okay. Shall we agree to disagree about Ta-Nehisi Coates and move on?
Damn.
For crying out loud. Anyway.
It's so funny, Glenn, on that situation, though. We're not there.
How many are you going to kill? How many are you going to starve? How many are you going to destroy their habitat? How many are you going to push around like pieces on a chessboard?
Hamas is dedicated to wiping Israel off the map. What do you do about that? It's hard.
Kill them all? Is that your answer? Because that's what's happening.
Suppose what you're trying to do, and here's where there is legitimate debate. You're trying to take out Hamas. I don't know if that's possible, but if you're trying to do that and they hide behind their own people, what does one do?
No, it's not possible. I think we're learning that right now. They hiding behind their own people. All I see is rubble. I don't think there's any place left to hide. There's not a school. There's not a university. There's not a mosque. There's not a hospital. There's not a shelter.
And if you stopped doing all that, the problem is, i.e. the complexity of this is, Hamas wants to wipe Israel off the map and will do things like they did on October 7th, and they vowed to do it again. What do you do about that is the issue to debate, not looking at the situation and saying they're being...
That's Israel's issue to debate. I'm an American. The issue for me to debate is what do I do with my country's resources on behalf of my ally? That's the issue to debate. I think there's plenty of scope in that area of debate for different opinions about what we Americans put our imprimatur behind.
Oh, I agree.
So let's debate what America should do. I mean, I don't know the answer to the dilemma of Israel. I don't know.
Does anyone? And that's the thing. But it is not as easy as, oh dear.
Well, is kill them all okay? Can we debate that? Is kill them all okay? I mean, that would solve the problem. Drive them into the sea. Drive them into the Sinai.
Nobody is trying to do that, though. And everybody knows it. Nobody's trying to kill them all.
I think the people, and there are many of them, who use the word genocide in reference to what's being done to the people in Gaza, do take that position that you're trying to kill them all. And I think there are many of those people. So you're wrong
I would
to say that nobody's saying
there
that.
are too many of those people, and that's a misuse of the word. Misuse as in a manipulative use of the word, just like we use white supremacy here. It's not a genocide. It's a horrible, horrible thing. But nobody's trying to kill all of them. That's not the point.
Moving on.
Boy, we are both going to catch it for that. And we're not even there. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's actually worth discussing because we are both going to catch it. Because there are thought police afoot. There are censors at work. There are people who are trying to control what words can be used and what thoughts can be thought and what things can be said. There are people who see the existential threats to Israel personally and who are active in trying to punish people who, like Ta-Nehisi Coates, who dare. I mean, what is his offense? His offense is not having an opinion that, I don't know, 2/3 of the world's population probably has. And have you noticed how isolated Israel and the United States are in international bodies when these questions come up? Is everybody wrong? Everybody a fool? Everybody is pre-modern? Everybody, as Netanyahu would have it, is a barbarian. It's not a clash of civilizations. It's a clash between civilization and barbarism. Are all the people on the wrong side, from their point of view, of this issue barbarians? Are they dupes?
It's too complicated to use labels like that. But to look at that
complicated
and say, to look at that situation and say apartheid is not serious thought. That's it.
Okay, so declares John McWhorter. Let's see how many he persuades with that. I don't think anyone who's not already persuaded of his position is going to be moved one iota by being told, don't believe your lying eyes, because that's what you're saying.
If all you're seeing is that slice in the present tense and pretending that there isn't a past involved in anything that's in the present, it's not serious thought. Of course, they're a part. The question is why. Then you can have some kind of productive discussion. All he sees is a part, which inherently says that what Hamas did was unfortunate, but understandable, which is what he has all but said in interviews. And once again, if that's how you feel, I'm not saying that there's no way to justify that, but you have to make the point. That book doesn't do it. There's a lack of effort there, or there's a lack of understanding of the complexity. You don't see that there's a gap in that to not even talk about October 7th.
I see he defines his mission as differently than yours. And, we could review this same discussion, but I would prefer to refer people to the thing that's already on the record in which we have aired these issues thoroughly.